My name is Bjarke, and I'm an app developer for Adapt.
My name is Christian Asmussen. I work as front-end lead at Adapt in Copenhagen.
Why are we talking about progressive web apps today?
It's buzzing.
We're talking about progressive web apps today because it's the browser's way of creating a native app feeling.
One of the main reasons is that the gap between capabilities for a native app and a web app has narrowed down to almost nothing.
So what makes a progressive web app special?
Well, it needs to be progressive, meaning that it should work for every user in every browser on every platform.
Well, the best quote I've heard so far is that it's a website that took all the right vitamins. What is behind that quote is of course that it's a website that's full of capabilities.
Progressive web app is really a list of many different features, and one of them is called Fresh. The experience needs to be updated all the time. You always get like the latest information, and you get it when it actually arrives.
In web development, some years back, there were discussion between the distinction of progressive enhancing websites or gracefully degrading them. That discussion came about when the browser diversity increased and the device diversity increased. And so you would have all these different browsers and that would work on these different devices, and they would have different capabilities. So should you create a baseline and from that remove features, which would be graceful degradation, or should you have a baseline and then add features according to the browser's capability, and you would call that progressive enhancement. So the whole idea of websites being progressive stems from this idea of looking at the browser's capability and adding features.
One of the big differences between a progressive web app and a native app is that a progressive web app is actually normally a lot smaller in size. It's faster than a normal website because your phone or your browser on native as well have already downloaded this page to show you.
You can install a service worker. A service worker allows you to get offline support, so you can cache stuff like in a different way that you could without the service worker. So let's say like that you're browsing through a category page and you're looking at shoes and you're sitting in the train. Let's say you go through a tunnel and you lose the internet connection. With the service worker, we can actually like cache into the service worker, and you can still see the shoes and you can still browse around and refresh the page, even though there's no internet. So you can make the application when it fails, it will not feel like too harsh. It would be like a smoother experience.
You're saying it's cutting edge. Are there any issues with PWAs?
There are still a lot of issues on the performance in a progressive web app. It's running as a website on your phone. This means it doesn't get the same amount of power as a native app has.
The thing is, there's absolutely nothing stopping you from making a crappy progressive web app. And one of the things that would, I guess, make a crappy progressive web app is a website trying to do too much. Down to basic, you could say like offline support served over HTTPS and a web manifest. I mean, you could say you have a progressive web app, yeah, that enables some features. And I mean, it's still the users that are our main focus. It's not whether we call these new features or we package them in something called a PWA. So essentially, a web app is an application that runs in a different application, namely a browser. And a progressive web app is a web app with progressive features.
Maybe I should ask you, what is a web app?
A web app is an application that runs in the browser.
Where would I see a web app?
In your browser.
But could you give me an example of a web app?
Yeah, anything that runs in the browser.